Last week we had an amazing episode where I spoke about the idea of the Lord will provide. On today's episode, it's a rerun, and it's a fantastic episode that ties with this topic. You're going to get the chance to hear from my good friend Stephen Hart, who shares his journey about getting into his marriage and finding himself in a tough situation, but how the Lord was able to help him and his wife and where they are today. You're going to love this one. Hey everyone, welcome to Changing. My name is Donald Kelly and I'm your host, and I'm super excited to share with you the story today. It is a rerun that we're pulling from the archive, but it's a fantastic one with a good friend of mine, Stephen A. Hart. I admire Stephen in his faith and in his walk with Christ, his discipleship, and the things that he teaches. His example is really powerful, and he is a strong believer and a strong example of a family man. And one thing that Stephen shares in this episode that really inspired me was just trust in the Lord. Stephen was able to build a company with one of his friends, and they were making really good money. He had just proposed to his wife, and they just had their wedding, and things just fell out. You're going to hear what happened with Stephen and how he was able to bounce back from that. And the only way I can tell you is because of his faith in Jesus Christ that's helped him to buoy him up and to bring him to where he's at today. I think you're going to love his story. If you're listening to our podcast or watching our video for the first time, please go ahead and subscribe. Also, share it with someone. You can find information on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Without further ado, let's go ahead and listen to Stephen's story. Stephen, welcome to Changing, man.
DK, thanks for having me.
Of course, I'm looking forward to this. As you know, we're all on our path to Christ. We're all disciples trying to make it, and we all have our stories. Everyone's story is different. Everyone's story is unique, and I know you have a powerful story. Being able to talk to you and seeing you and watch you over the past years, and having you as my surrogate big brother, like just being able to see that example, I'm super grateful for that. And I know the impact that you've had on my life and many other individuals' lives. I figured we got to share your message as well. So thank you for being willing to do that.
Well, Steph.
Stephen, I always liked, before we dive into the content in the discussion of your story, it's always good to see the person before, like who they are now and, what they're doing in their life. So tell us, I kind of bragged about you to begin. What do you do right now on a day-to-day basis besides take care of that amazing family?
Absolutely. So, Donald, I am most grateful for being Kristen's husband of almost 13 years. Mm-hmm. We got married in the summer of 2008, and I'll share a bit more about that in a second. We also have two amazing crumb snatchers, a 10-year-old daughter, a 6-year-old son. And in the heights of a pandemic, this year has taught me to be real grateful for having family, having health, having strength. I am gainfully employed for the Science Institute. I do marketing by day. And like you, Donald, being Jamaican, there are 17 other things that I do that consume my energy and my passion and my heart. And so I, for the last 5+ years, have enjoyed podcasting. And for those listening who don't know me, Donald is actually the person who inspired me and whispered in my ear and pushed me along to get a podcast going. And I'm so grateful to you forever for allowing me to be your big brother, but also being a good little brother in whispering in my ear and saying, hey, the world needs what you can provide to it. And so as a content creator, as a marketer, as a brand strategist, and all the other titles that I've gained along this way, I've been able to impact hundreds of thousands of people now through our podcast, interviewing over 200 amazing guests on the podcast.
Absolutely amazing there, man. That's awesome. And I definitely know you've impacted a lot of people. And see, if you guys haven't done so, I want you to go ahead and connect with Stephen. I have a link to his Twitter account as well, and you'll see why, because the way he connects with folks is just like amazing. Stephen, there is this, you made the joke about the podcast and about the different jobs, and I was just like cracking up for a second because I just added some stuff, updating my LinkedIn, and I was like, yeah, they just need to put a thing at the top. Yes, I am Jamaican, and there's multiple jobs. You know,
Yes.
so like the different roles that we have. It's just that we love what we do, man. You love being passionate. You give all the passion to those things, not tens
Love
of
what we
millions
do,
of things,
but-
but the things. Yeah.
You know,
The
Donald,
things that-
I think that the thing that unifies us and the reason that you and I have been good friends is that at the core of it, we do a lot of things, but we both know that our time here is limited. And even there are people who are still here who don't have the ability to do, right? My dad suffered a stroke 16 months ago. He suffered 2 strokes over the last 16 months. And that's been a very challenging time period for me. There are many things that he and I have talked about doing for 10 years. And we thought time was unlimited. And one of the bigger challenges I live through today is, you know, some of the things we discussed wanting to do up to a month before he had the stroke. And then he suffered a stroke and we're unable to do that. And so while he's still here with us and I'm still blessed to have him in the physical, he's a shell of who he was.
Yeah.
And we can't, no, you know, we don't have the ability right now to do the things that we had hoped to do because those things change. So things change as we're talking about changes and changing. And so we have an opportunity. It's a gift. We often hear, you know, today is a gift, and that's why they call it the present. But it's true. We aren't always promised the same opportunity tomorrow that we have right in this moment in time as you and I are talking. So we have to get up understanding that we might not even finish today. And we have the ability to plant seeds in a garden we likely never see, which is what our legacy is.
Yeah.
Right. So God's blessed me in so many tremendous ways. And I think you and I, we are energized every day to do as much as we do. One, to provide for our families, absolutely, and to do God's will. But 2, I know your heart, and you know, we are aligned in that, you know, we hope to impact as many people as we can in the time that we're given. And so that is what fuels me each and every day, is that, you know, should today be my day that I'm called home, I can step away from this earth and know that I gave it my all and that I impacted others for the good.
Oh, that's so powerful, man. And I think as a disciple, as a follower of Christ, that's what he wants us to do, right? How can people need to look at you and to see him, his reflection. We can see that. That's great. But you weren't always at this level, Stephen. You have a story behind that. And
absolutely.
Take me back. This was back in 2008. But let's go back to 2007. Really?
Yeah, I'll even do you one better. So, leaving college, Donald, I graduated from college in '99, and I spent the first 12 months, I spent probably the first 3 years out of college working about 12 jobs. I could not anchor myself in any one place.
Yeah.
And eventually I found myself in the mortgage industry. And
go back to this, Stephen. Why couldn't you stay in one place? What was going on?
I'm the son of 2 entrepreneurially wired parents, and knew that I wanted to do my own thing at some point. I just did not operate well in monotonous settings, doing monotonous tasks. And, you know, I'm just not the widget builder that's going to be happy, you know, just building the widget day in and day out, right? So
yeah,
I've sold and you know, in every retail outfit, every, you know, there's few things I've not tried my hand at coming out of college. The blessing in that is that today, as a leader, as a professional, as an entrepreneur, it's helped me to see things through a completely different lens because I've experienced quite a bit. in the way of sales, in the way of marketing, in the way of business, and so I had family who loved on me and said, "Hey, yeah, this is not going in the direction we need you to stabilize and anchor yourself." And it was a good conversation to have with a then young 20-something. And what that did for me, Donald, is it got me, I saw my way into the mortgage industry, and shortly after, in 2005, started my first business in the financial sector. I'm running a trading advisory, and I started a business with a close college friend of mine. And we had differing skills and mindset towards just the way we operated in business and in life.
Yeah.
We quickly built a very successful business doing what we did. And my sole focus and energy in my 20s, in my early 20s, was to become a millionaire by the time I was 30. I was obsessed.
Why was that so important?
I was saved. I was a Christian, but it was just a worldly pursuit, right? To be able to afford the things of life, to afford the big house and the big car, to do things that I was living a worldly life at that point, right? So in college, not a Friday night would go by that I wasn't in a nightclub or doing things that I wasn't supposed to be doing. And that was my pursuit at that point in the journey. It was just about that point in time where I met who would then become my wife, as this business was starting to explode. And I got to a point, Donald, where in that year prior to 2008 and 2007, things peaked in the business. And I remember taking my wife, then fiance, on a Christmas vacation to Paris. And we're spending all this money. And things were just grand. And coming into the new year, I promised to buy her a brownstone, $1 million brownstone, when we got married. And we spent a six-figure sum of money on our wedding, which happened in Jamaica. And we had an amazing wedding. And I returned from the wedding. Within 3 weeks, I discovered that a massive investment of ours had tanked. We had our own Bernie Madoff, if you will, somebody Madoff with a good bit of money in another firm that we had made a big investment in. So it wasn't even within our own setup, but somebody we had divested a good chunk of capital with. And that business lost over $100 million, and it spun off to us losing $7 million.
Holy moly.
And we immediately went from being in a position of strength to immediate weakness. I remember earlier in 2008, just the joy of hearing my accountant say, "Hey, yeah, your net worth is now in the 7 figures." And making the promise to my wife that, "Hey, we're going to buy this amazing home. We're going to start a family, and I'm going to take care of you." And having this amazing wedding, DK, and then having the entire thing ripped from under me 3 weeks into marriage. And the pride to have to look her in her face and say, "Hey, not only has my business failed," I didn't even have the courage at that point to explain that I didn't do the wise thing and pay off debt while I had those assets. I was leveraging the fact that I had all this asset built into the business and was still carrying student loan debt that I didn't wisely pay off. I still was carrying, I had two homes, which also had built a lot of equity in. We both did, actually, but we bought in the peak of 2005 when real estate was at its highest, not realizing
You're
then
giving that
that
stuff
it was
away like lollipops.
it was going to tank. And so shortly after the business collapsed, so did the real estate market. So did the financial markets. Everything fell apart. So I was left with personal debt. I was left with real estate going upside down. I was left with a business that we had to dissolve and start over in a much better structure. And I had to with humility, explain that, hey, I was in a bad place, had investors coming at me for their money, and go from a place of saying, hey, I'm going to buy you $1 million brownstone, to asking for her help to pay the rent for the foreseeable future.
Wow.
And so with pride today, I'm grateful that I'm still married to that same woman who stood by my side at that darkest of dark valleys. And it, you know, in the back, over the course of the year that followed, Donald, it was a very challenging, a very dark valley for me, right? I was walking through the valley of the shadow of death, right? In many ways, I couldn't provide. I was provider up to that point. You know, from even before starting that business, I had a very successful time in the mortgage industry. Even before the business, making six figures in my mid-20s in Florida in early 2000s, I was fine, right?
Yeah.
I was always financially well off to where I could buy the house, I could buy the cars, I could provide. And I was at a point where I couldn't provide. And we made a decision to try and rebuild the business because we believed in it so much. And so I invested 18 hours a day, 7 days a week for the next year and a half, trying to rebuild our business. Now, in that season, it was also challenging because my business partner, who was very self-centered, and it worked in a financial investment firm, dealing with other high-flying clients, was just destroyed when the business fell apart, right? And that ego left, and it almost was to the negative, where when it fell apart, he lost that source of pride and ego, and so it was challenging, both in a business partnership as well as a marriage. And a business partnership in many ways is another marriage. And so I found myself managing relationships, managing direction. And so the biggest thing for me, DK, was understanding what really at the core was what was life about. And that was the point where I got baptized. I sought after God to look at, what's next? Where do you want me to go? What's your will? I had to become less so you could become more in my life. I had to change my entire mindset towards being self-centered and focusing on goals that impacted me. And again, coming back to what we spoke about before, looking at how I could serve the world, how I could serve, the will of God in my life, serve this woman who I've been married to, who he's blessed me with, serve my children, serve my community, serve my people. And so over the next 10 years, I've reframed everything, the way I look at money, the way I look at my own life and my own legacy, and the seeds, again, I'm planting in a garden that I likely will never see.
Oh my goodness, Stephen, that's powerful in so many different ways. Like, I've heard the story before, but even hearing it this time around, it was a little bit more, a lot more to it than I didn't grasp. Understanding your situation right now and knowing you now, did you, during that time period, you said you were, you believed you were a Christian, but did you ever when this all happened, did you just instantaneously say, God, help me, I give up? Like, or what happened? Was it just like, you realize I neglected him during that time? Like, can you think about that?
If
that
I'm
moment?
being honest, you never go directly that route. I was angry, right? I was angry at God. I was like, why did this happen to me, right? And I didn't get baptized for maybe a year after this all played out. So there was a year of trying to figure out life, going through a depression state, and being broken down to the, the lowest low, the darkest of the valley, in the year that followed, because again, following the dissolution of that business came the real estate fallout. Mm-hmm. And then going into, what was the remaining asset now is, a big liability in terms of, having to short sale property and to clear debt as best I could. So it was a very challenging time mentally. My mindset was not good, Donald. And I won't tell anyone that, this was, a quick turnaround. But Kristen and I both got baptized late 2009. So it was it was more than a year after the collapse of the business that, we re-anchored ourselves, we refocused ourselves. We also took an approach to saying, hey, you know what, if we're in this together for the long term, we need to take a completely different approach to how we handle money. And so, we did a course to kind of help us look at how we approach money, how we clear that debt together. Grace of God, today, I don't owe anybody any money. I paid off my student loan debts. I don't owe, more on a credit card than I pay off in a monthly, on a month-to-month basis. And, we've learned to be more wise about, handling money. And so, in many ways, God has this testimony is not for me, right? And it's heavy. There are days where today I'm able to share it with you. There are other times where I try to share it, and it's a heavy testimony to share, because there are times where it feels like I'm bringing myself right back to that moment in time, and I can't, get it all out. So I share as much as I can share in hopes that it helps others. And inspires others to share their own testimony, and also know if they're in their dark place right now, because so many people are, by way of the pandemic of this past year, to know that God is able, and there's nothing impossible that he can't help us through.
Stephen, what I love, one of the pieces that you mentioned, and I absolutely love, was just that you said it took time. And I think sometimes many of us, when I first was contemplating what we're going to do this podcast about, we hear stories and we read, like, you can read a passage in the Bible and, over a couple pages, that could be, hundreds of years, or even a decade, but when we read it, we automatically assume that it's just that instantaneous change. I mean, Peter didn't change overnight. I mean, even after Christ died, was crucified, he denied him 3 times, right? So it's like, what if he eventually changed? And he was with them all the time. And I think the power in that is that we take our time, we take our moments, and on that journey, you were able to find your way. It was through a challenging place, but your marriage is stronger, your life is richer, and maybe a clearer path that's been opened up. It's definitely not easy, knowing the challenges that we all face. However, I think you now have an easier way of experiencing and going through that path. Am I right off on that?
I wouldn't say easy, because 2020 was another very, very challenging year, but it's all about equipping yourself with the tools. And you touched on the time, and time is so very important, right? A lot of times I still want God to resolve things that are challenging me right now. I want him to resolve it right now. But God's timing is ultimately the best. And so in 2008 and in 2020, there are verses that I anchor myself to, right? In 2008, it was Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. They're plans to, for good. And to give you a hope and a future, right? And in the past year, I anchored myself to Matthew 6:25 to 34, and Philippians 4, 6 to 8. And this past year, I've been dealing with so much anxiety and worry and fear around the pandemic, around my dad's challenges and having to be a caretaker. And Philippians 4:6 is what everybody anchors themselves to. Do not worry about anything, pray about anything, tell God what you need, and thank him for all he has done.
Amen.
But verse 8 says, fix your thoughts on what is true, right? Fix your thoughts on what is true. And for me, that spoke to me, Donald, because I fix my thoughts no matter how much I read that message. I fix my thoughts on the things I'm worried about. I fix my thoughts on the things that generate anxiety. I fix my thoughts on the things I fear. What is the acronym for fear, Donald? False evidence appearing real. What is anxiety, DK? Anxiety is the result of you thinking of things in a future state, a what if that doesn't yet exist. Right?
Yeah.
And so when the word says fix your thoughts on what is true, it's fix your thoughts on his word, on his promises, trusting his timing, not allowing the false evidence appearing real, not allowing the anxiety and the worry to consume you, right? And just worry about today. My acronym for, my mantra for last year was, not one day at a time, 1 hour at a time. And Matthew 6:25 to 34 talks about, just focusing like the birds and the flowers, just focusing on right now, right? Focusing on right now and not getting yourself off into tomorrow, because tomorrow has enough worries of its own.
Oh, dude, so true, man. So true. Yeah, if he took care of them and, they're not even, not even as arrayed as, they're all taken care of, like everything, even up to birds of the sky, and I look at it, I think about the dandelions sometimes. I think about all these little flowers. I'm like, yeah, they're beautiful, yeah. But yeah, God take care of them. So why can't He take care of me too? I love
and they
that,
won't
Stephen.
be here for long, and neither will we, right? So the limited time we have here, we have to make the best use of it.
Stephen, your life now is, we're coming up on the end here, your life is truly blessed. You guys, you and Christian and your family, Christian and your family have a wonderful Christian family, and you guys are doing pretty well. Somebody's out there listening to this, and they're feeling that level of anxiety, they're concerned, they're worried, they've had a lot of challenges in their life this past year. They're going through a lot right now financially. Marriage is challenging. What kind of hope, what kind of message of hope you can give them when it comes towards knowing that things can change and that the Savior Jesus Christ can help change them? What thought would you give them?
Yeah, my life is a testimony for a reason that all things are possible, and we can come through the darkest of the dark valleys. If you're going through this, if this is your season where you're experiencing loss, whether that's loss of a job or loss of a marriage or loss of someone to COVID, that's a difficult thing to cope with, and it's a grieving process, and grieving doesn't happen quickly, not as quickly as we'd like. And so you're going to have to grieve that loss. And unfortunately, I can't tell you it's going to happen right away, but I can tell you that it will happen. You will get to a better place with time and with focus and with deliberate intent on the things that, God puts into your heart, right? For me, it was writing and getting clear on, God's word and putting that in my heart. And I'm not going to tell you that I'm always on the right course, right? Donald talked about changes happen, and you grow and we're still sinners, right? We still have things that, we're always working on ourselves, but over time, I keep God at the center. I keep praying. I keep communicating with Him. I keep talking with Him. I keep seeking after His will. And And my advice is just to do just that, right? To pray and to seek after God, to make sure that your will, that your goals are in accordance with His will, and you know, to allow yourself to be guided by what you think will impact the work of His kingdom, right? So that's my advice to you today. You know, again, those verses, Jeremiah 29:11. Know that, you know, there's a hope and a future for you, right? I'm in so much better of a place today, which is 12 years from when that first change happened. It didn't happen overnight, but, you know, with discipline, with focus, with a vision towards the future, not everything worked out in my favor, but it worked out on God's timing. And I'm in a home that we own that is the longest place I've ever lived in my life. And there's so much more stability in my life today as a result of it. So, you know, take care of yourself, take care of your self-care, take care of your mental health and your mental strength. Anchor yourself in the Word and take it one hour at a time.
Stephen, if folks out there listening to you want to get in touch with you, they heard your testimony today, heard about your story, how did they go about doing so?
Absolutely. So it's easy for you to connect with me on social media. I'm everywhere at Stephen A. Hart, on Instagram, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Twitter, and then my website is stephenahart.com. Feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions or if I can be of service in any way.
And just a big tip, Stephen is an amazing marketer and brand strategist. So the reason why I'm Donald C. Kelly everywhere was just because of that statement he just said. Stephen, thank you so much for coming on this episode, for sharing. We appreciate you and wish you and your family as the best. God bless.
Thank you, DK. God bless.
Oh man, that was so powerful. True example of faith. Please go ahead and connect with Stephen A. Hart. Tell him that you heard him on this podcast on Changing, and let him know that that you are inspired by his message, and hopefully it can help you change and improve your life. There are many of us out there struggling. Many of us are going through challenges. We can help each other. Pray for someone, reach out to them, let them know that you're there, minister to them. And maybe if you need a little bit of ministering too, feel free to reach out to me, donaldckelly09@gmail.com. More than willing to say a prayer with you, read scriptures, or connect you with some ministers from our church. As always, Jesus is the Christ. He lives. I know He will come again. And just like how He helped Stephen, I know He can help you and help your family and bless you and strengthen you. I know this is true. I've witnessed it so many times, and I have faith in Him, and I know He will come again. And when He does, I want for us to be on His right side, that we're there with Him. I know He lives again, and I share that with you in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.